This week we're looking at chapter 14, and the first image that's going to help us into chapter 14 this evening is that of blossom on the almond tree. Think of those words from the prophet. I said to the almond tree, speak to me of love, and it blossomed. We also reflect on Christ's death, our death in baptism, in the waters of life, and we are reminded of the importance of returning to the eternal dwelling. Good evening and welcome to week 4 of our series on the Gospel of John. This week we're looking at chapter 14, verses 1 to 31, particularly at the verse, I am the way, the truth, and the life. So in chapter 14, Jesus' farewell discourse begins properly, and he speaks to his disciples about his departure. The text is about belief, it is about love, and it is about departure. It begins with the theme of encouragement. Jesus is there to encourage his disciples, to speak of Christian hope, to share with them that he will not be with them for always. Jesus reveals himself by the means of an ego eimi statement, an I am statement. And we looked at those I am statements in week 2, a typical feature of the Gospel of John and a typical feature of this passage. In this text, we hear that Jesus is the revelation of the Father. The disciples are asked to believe in the oneness of Jesus and the Father. So the text is about that fundamental relationship between the Father and the Son, between God the Father and the one that he sent incarnate among us, Jesus. We are to believe in him on the basis of the Father's works that he performs. So he's instructing his disciples on a key notion of the incarnation, that he has come to fulfill the Father's will. He has come to realize the sharing of God's love with the world. He invites us to reflect also on that relationship. The disciples should love as Jesus has loved. Jesus gives us that example in his own life, in his own ministry, in the way that he works with people. Faith and trust in God is still a reasonable request to make of his disciples. And it's significant that in his final discourse with them, he reiterates what has been central to his own ministry, that desire to share God's love with the world. Jesus clearly tells the disciples that he is going home to his Father. He is going back to a permanent dwelling, an abiding place. And that should give us confidence that the fulfillment of Jesus' will is also part of our eternal salvation. Jesus' departure should not be an occasion for sorrow, but for comfort and trust. Jesus is the way that leads to the Father. He is the one that gives us the direction, gives us the meaning, helps us to understand truly what the Father wants for each one of us. Jesus is the only way to the Father. He is the unique and the saving revelation of God. So he is sharing with his disciples that desire to understand why he came and why he has to go. He is the one who he becomes the way of the followers. He gives that direction. Belief and trust are the only way to their goal of oneness with the Father. So he is there to encourage them, to help their belief and their trust, and to enable them to face the passion and then make sense of the resurrection. To know Jesus is to know the Father. The words he speaks are the words of the Father. Belief, therefore, is crucial. And so he is helping his disciples as when we read these texts, we too are helped. The works of the disciples surpass those of Jesus because Jesus will be present in his absence. And so he is preparing the disciples for the post-resurrection experience, for the work that they will do in the early Christian community, that they will continue and they will share that saving message. Both the truth and the life explain the way. And so these few words, I am the way, the truth and the life, have become central to the preaching of the gospel because they sum up in a nutshell Jesus sharing with his disciples, Jesus wanting them to understand the core of his mission. Jesus is the way to the heavenly realities of truth and life. And what better way to celebrate them than to share, to underscore, to reassure his disciples and also to reassure us. One of the characteristic literary styles that is in John's Gospel is the chiasm. The chiasm, or the chiastic text, is based on the Greek letter chi, which is in a bit of the shape of an X. It's an ancient rhetoric style that helped people to memorize the text. So the first and the second halves are balanced and the reverse in order. And the highlight, the most important sentence, is in the middle. It's not like today where we normally build up to a climax at the end. And so we'll offer one or two slides just to let people see what that looks like. It normally goes, if we think of sentences as A, B, C, D, E, E would then be the core of the message, and then D dot, C dot, B dot, and A dot would then reflect the first half of the structure. These texts are found in the Old Testament. They are in Genesis 17, 1 to 25, in Exodus 3, 7 to 20, in Deuteronomy 32, and in Ecclesiastes 11, 3 to 12, 2. Also in the New Testament, you'll find them in 2 Thessalonians 2, 1 to 14, and in Hebrews 12, 1 to 2. Many examples of this literary style is found in the Gospel of John. These chiasms are found in the opening chapter, in the prologue, verses 1 to 18, in the second chapter, verses 13 to 22, in chapter 6, verses 1 to 15, and further on in chapter 6, verses 6 to 25. They're also in John 13, 1 to 2, John 17, 1 to 28, which we'll look at next week, and also in John 21, 1 to 14. If, for example, we look at the text in John 6, 1 to 15, it's the feeding of the 5,000. And so there is a geographical and temporal introduction telling us it's the Sea of Galilee, or Tiberias. There is a large crowd following Jesus, and they saw the signs that he was doing. So he goes up onto a mountain. The Jewish Passover was near. Jesus says to Philip, "Where can we buy enough food for them to eat?" Philip replies, 200 days' wages would not be enough. Andrew, one of his disciples, suggests, "Here's a boy with 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what good is that among so many people?" Jesus orders, "Have the people recline," and about 5,000 men reclined on the grass. Then the key sentence in verse 11a, Jesus took the loaves, he gave thanks, and he distributed them. We then see that mirrored in the texts that followed. To those who were reclining, also fish as much as they wanted. Jesus tells his disciples to collect the fragments, and they fill 12 wicker baskets with the fragments from 5 barley loaves, which were left over from those who had eaten. The people saw the sign, and they say, "This is the prophet who came into the world." Jesus knew that they were about to make him king, so he withdrew to the mountain alone.